I never thought the worst betrayal of my life would come from the son I raised with my own 2 hands. The day he looked me in the eye and said, "Dad, if you really loved me, you would fix this," I realized I had lost him to someone else's greed, and walking away from him was the hardest thing I ever did. My name is Robert. I'm 73 years old now, and I've lived what most people would call a good life. I worked as a high school teacher for 40 years. I wasn't rich, but Margaret and I, my late wife, we built something beautiful together, a home filled with love, 2 children who knew they were wanted, a simple, honest life. Margaret passed 6 years ago. Cancer took her in the spring, just when the garden she loved so much was starting to bloom again. I still talk to her sometimes, sitting in that garden. I tell her about our grandkids, about how proud she would be of Sarah, our daughter, who became a nurse, just like Margaret always hoped. And I tell her about our son. His name is Michael. He was always the charmer, the one who could light up a room with his smile. Margaret used to say he had her eyes in my stubborn heart. We were so proud when he graduated college, when he landed that marketing job, when he married Nancy. But Nancy was different. From the beginning, I noticed things. The way she would steer conversations toward money, how she would comment on Sarah's modest wedding and call it quaint with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Margaret saw it too, but she would squeeze my hand and whisper, "Give her time, Robert. Love changes people." Margaret was wrong about that. 3 years after we buried Margaret, Michael called me one evening. His voice was tight, strained in a way I had never heard before. "Dad, I need to talk to you. Can I come over?" He arrived with Nancy. They sat across from me in the living room, Margaret's favorite room, and I could see the weight on Michael's shoulders before he even spoke. "Dad," he started, his hands trembling slightly. "We're in trouble. Nancy, she made some investments, things that were supposed to be safe. They weren't." Nancy sat there, stone-faced, staring at her expensive handbag. "How much trouble?" I asked, though something in my gut already knew this was bad. $300,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. I felt the walls of that room close in. "Michael," that's I couldn't even finish. "How did this happen?" Nancy finally spoke, her voice sharp. "The market crashed. My advisor said it was a sure thing. How was I supposed to know?" But there was no remorse in her eyes, no acknowledgement of responsibility, just anger that her plan had failed. Michael leaned forward. "Dad, I know it's a lot, but you have the house, you have Mom's life insurance, you have your retirement savings. You want me to give you $300,000? I interrupted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not give, Dad. We would pay you back. Eventually." I looked at my son, really looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the man sitting in front of me. This wasn't the boy I had taught to ride a bike. This wasn't the young man who had cried at his mother's funeral and promised to make her proud. "Michael, that money, that's everything your mother and I worked for. That's my security, my future." Nancy scoffed. "You're 70 years old. How much future do you really need?" The cruelty of those words cut deeper than any knife. Michael didn't defend me. He didn't tell his wife to stop. He just sat there, torn between the two of us, and I realized something heartbreaking. He had already chosen her. "If you really loved me," Michael said quietly, "you would help us. That's what family does." I told them I needed time to think. That night, I called my old friend Joe, someone I had known since we were both young teachers, struggling to make ends meet. I told him everything. "Robert," Joe said after a long silence, "that boy is trying to guilt you into destroying yourself. That's not love, that's manipulation. But he is my son, Joe, and you are his father, a father who has already given him everything. You don't owe him your survival." Joe's words stayed with me. I thought about Margaret, about what she had said. I thought about the life we had built, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. And I thought about Sarah, quiet, responsible Sarah, who never asked me for anything, who checked on me every week, who still brought flowers to her mother's grave. The next morning, I called Michael. "I can't do it, son, I won't." The line went silent for a moment. Then, "So that's it? You're just going to let us drown?" "Michael, I love you, but I can't destroy my life to fund someone else's mistakes." "Then don't bother calling yourself my father anymore." He hung up. The weeks that followed were the loneliest of my life. Michael blocked my number. He told Sarah I had abandoned him. He painted me as selfish, cold, heartless, but Sarah knew better. She came over one afternoon, sat with me in the garden, and held my hand the way Margaret used to. "Dad," she said softly, "you did the right thing. Michael, he has lost right now. But that doesn't mean you were wrong." Still, I wondered. Late at night, in that empty house, I wondered if I should have just given them the money, if peace was worth the price of everything I had left. Then, one day, my phone rang. Unknown number. It was Michael. His voice was broken, raw. "Dad, I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." He told me everything. How Nancy had left him when he couldn't fix the debt, how he'd lost his job from the stress, how he had been sleeping on a friend's couch, trying to piece his life back together. "I was so stupid," he cried. You were right about everything, and I threw you away for someone who didn't even really love me." My heart shattered and healed at the same time. "Michael," I said, my voice thick with emotion, come home, son." He moved back in with me 3 months ago, not because he had nowhere else to go, though that was part of it, but because we both needed to rebuild what we had lost. We talk now, really talk, about Margaret, about mistakes, about what it means to love someone without losing yourself. Sarah visits more often now, bringing her daughter, my granddaughter, who fills this old house with laughter again. Michael is working again, slowly paying off his debt through honest work, through sacrifice, through the kind of character I always knew was in him. And sometimes, late at night, I sit in Margaret's garden and tell her that our boy came back to us, not because I gave him money, but because I loved him enough to say no. Some of the hardest lessons in life come wrapped in heartbreak. But real love, true family love, isn't about giving people everything they want. It's about helping them become who they are meant to be, even when it costs you both something precious. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be part of someone's destruction, and sometimes walking away is the only way to bring them home.